The NHL playoffs are here and the matchups are locked in, and I have no idea who's going to win. I mean, I could take an educated guess, but I don't really know. But I do have 9 predictions about what's going to happen in the first round. 3 of them that I'm 90% confident will happen, 3 that I'm 50-50, and 3 shots in the dark that I'm giving a 10% chance they could happen. So here are my 9 predictions for what's going to happen in the first round of the Stanley Cup, as well as my predictions for all 8 of the first round matchups. And my first prediction is I think that there is a 90% chance that this Toronto Maple Leafs Boston Bruins series is going to put Steve Dangle into an early grave. If you saw LFR last night, he was taking the news of the Leafs having to face the Bruins in the first round pretty well. This series is going to have him and every other Leafs fan having heart palpitations as they pray to every god that they know of that they can finally slay the demon that is the Boston Bruins. And it's not like these are the Boston Bruins of last year, all fat and happy. They got a chip on their shoulder after being eliminated in a heartbreaking 7-game series of the Florida Panthers last year. They've got something to prove, and I think they're going to do it this year. Once again, breaking the hearts of every Maple Leafs fan in the world. Boston in 5. Next up, I think that there's about a 50% chance that Stars captain Jamie Benn gets suspended again for something horrible and dirty, just like he did last year in that series against these same Vegas Golden Knights. And I am sure that the Golden Knights have not forgotten about that. These two teams played each other very close this year. Even though Vegas won all 3 games, one of them they had to win in a shootout and the other one in overtime. The third was a 6-1 blowout, but still, I think this is going to be a bare-knuckle brawl of a series. I think it goes to 7 games, and I think actually Vegas will end up taking this one, Vegas in 7. Back in the East, I think that there is a 10% chance that the New York Islanders are able to take down the Carolina Hurricanes in this series. Everybody is saying that Washington-New York is the most lopsided series of the playoffs, but me, I disagree. I think that Carolina is just an absolute machine of a team. They just barely lost out on being the President's Trophy winners. They're my favorites to win the East over Florida and New York. I would be absolutely stunned if the Carolina Hurricanes do not win this series. Canes in 5. Next prediction I have is for the playoffs as a whole. I think there's a 90% chance that we are going to get a triple overtime game at some point in the first round. And let me tell you, I already feel sorry for the fans of the 2 teams that are in that triple overtime game, because that is just like eating a boulder of stress. Please God, don't let it be Caps Rangers. And speaking of Caps Rangers, here's my controversial pick. I think there's a 50% chance that the Caps take down the New York Rangers in the first round. I know, call me a homer, call me a fanboy, but these 2 teams have split their season series 2-2 with an even goal differential in those games. But did you know that there are 4 teams entering the playoffs this year that have a negative expected goal differential at 5-on-5? The Boston Bruins, the Tampa Bay Lightning, of course the Washington Capitals, and the New York Rangers. The Rangers are actually second worst among all playoff teams, ahead of the Caps, with a sub 50% expected goal percentage. This team lives and dies on the power play, and the Caps are one of the least penalized teams in the NHL. If the refs swallow their whistles in this series, everybody was making the same jokes about the Columbus Blue Jackets a few years ago and about the Florida Panthers last year. The playoffs are all luck. I'll give it to the Rangers in 6 games. Next up in the Edmonton Oilers LA Kings series, I'd say there's a 10% chance that Stuart Skinner just absolutely goes God mode and just steals a couple of games for the Edmonton Oilers. There's always one goaltender that nobody thinks of who just goes into another plane of ascension. Last year it was Bobrovsky, and this year there are a lot of goaltenders who are either entering the playoffs hot or are just very big names that people are expecting to have big performances. Skinner is the one guy who kind of stands out that nobody's expecting a lot from, so he's my pick to just ascend to a higher plane of goaltending, even though the guy he's facing, Cam Talbot, could be a candidate for that too. Whichever one of them does, I think that's who's going to win the series, but I'm going to pick Edmonton to win it in 6. And for my last 90% prediction, I think there's a 90% chance that some call goes against the Vancouver Canucks that causes Canucks fans to absolutely lose their shit and maybe not go to burning cars, but definitely raising a huge stink on Twitter. You guys out in Vancouver are absolute maniacs, and I mean that in the best possible way. So God help the ref that misses a high stick or calls a delay a game in the last 2 minutes of a game. And with the Predators' hot streak firmly behind them, I'm going Canucks in 5. And for my last 50-50 odds, I'd say there's a 50% chance that the Tampa Bay Lightning get shut out in multiple games of the first round against the Florida Panthers. The Panthers have the lowest expected goals against at even strength of any team in the NHL, and both Sergei Bobrovsky and Anthony Stolarz are in the top 5 when it comes to total goals saved above expected on the year. The Lightning are 15th in expected goals for and 5-on-5, so they're really relying on the power play for generating offense, and like I said with Washington, if the refs call it a lot looser, Tampa Bay might not get a lot of chances to put the puck in the back of the net. I pick Cats in 6. And then finally, for the Winnipeg Jets versus Colorado Avalanche series, I think that there is a 10% chance that Nathan MacKinnon does not score in this series. Not a slight against him. Again, I'm saying that this is very, very unlikely to happen, McKinnon is my personal pick for MVP at the moment, but weird shit happens in the playoffs all the time, and it would be absolutely hilarious, not for Avs fans, if McKinnon just suddenly goes cold. I don't think he does, and I think Colorado takes the series, Avs in 5.